Sure.
Hello, and welcome to the first edition of Followers for Life monthly Bible study. Hopefully on Sunday you were at church, you got your packet, and I'll be sending you out your PowerPoint. But now, today we're going to talk about Jesus feeds the 5,000. This story is found in the book of John. It's actually in the book of Mark, the book of Luke, the book of Matthew, and the book of John. But the reason I like the book of John is because John is the only book that talks about the little boy. So, what happens is, Jesus and his friends, his disciples, have been out ministering all over the place. They've been healing people, raising people from the dead, blessing people all over the place. And now they're done, and now they're back, and they decide that they're going to sit down, and they're going to have a rest time, and they're going to go over all the stuff they've done the last couple of days. So they go up to the mountain, and they look behind them, and a crowd of people is coming toward Jesus and the disciples. The Bible tells us there's about 5,000 men coming. They don't even count the women and the children. And so Jesus begins to talk to the people, and he looks at his disciple Philip, and he says, Philip, in verse 5, where should we buy bread for these people to eat? Now just think about it. Philip has been with Jesus the last 2 weeks. He's been out on his own. And he's been with Jesus when they've healed people, when they've raised people from the dead, when they've done all these miraculous things. And now Jesus asks Philip, where are we going to get the food to feed these 5,000 people? What do you think Philip's answer was? Philip says, it would take almost a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have a bite. Do you think that Jesus didn't know where the food was coming from? Do you think Jesus didn't know how he was going to feed the people? Or maybe he was testing Philip. If Philip just saw all these miracles day after day after day, and Jesus said, where do you think the food is coming from? Young people. Where was the food coming from? From the same source that was providing the healing the last couple of days, the food was going to come from God. So we go on in the story, and in verse 8 it says, here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. But how far would they go among so many? So let's explain. First of all, I said that John is the only one that talks about the little boy. So it's a little boy who has 5 barley loaves, which is not that big, and 2 small fish. So nowadays, if you want to understand how big that was, let's think about a simple Happy Meal. This is Burger King, not McDonald's, sorry. It's probably equivalent to the small fries and a 5-piece of nugget. And don't forget the drink. And so we have to believe that this little boy, that food wasn't just for him. That might have been for him, his mom, and his dad. And they were going to share this small meal. And now Jesus is saying, take this small meal, and it's going to be enough to feed 5,000 people, 5,000 men, women, and children. So we think that if it's for one woman or one child for every man, you're talking about over 10,000 people we're going to be fed with this little bit of food. So what does our Bible tell us? The Bible tells us, Jesus told them in verse 10, have the people sit down. And there was plenty of grass in that place, and they sat down. And Jesus took the loaves. And here's what's very important, young people. It said when Jesus took the loaves, he gave thanks. That's the first thing. When you sit down to eat, what do your parents always tell you? Say grace. It's not just to bless the food, but it's to give thanks to the one who provides the food. So the first thing Jesus did was he gave thanks. And Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks, and gave them to those who were seated. Here's the key. It said as much as they wanted. Not as much as they could eat, not as much as was allowed to them, but it said as much as they wanted. And what it means is that means that God, through Jesus, was able to multiply the food that they had enough to fill them. And not only that, but he gave them leftovers. So God won't just meet your needs today, but he'll meet your needs for days to come. Because after everybody had eaten all they wanted, they had 12 baskets full of leftovers. So they would continue to be blessed. So let's remember that not only does Jesus feed the 5,000, but Jesus feeds you on a daily. He gives you what you want, and it fills you so that you have more from day to day. That's the lesson that Jesus feeds the 5,000. Hope to see you in our October lesson. Shouts out to Patience, who has a birthday this month. and Reverend Angela, and next month we'll shout out for the November birthdays. Bye.